Okay, so we're starting on Beis Amid Beis Itmar. Itmar, we learned in a memra. Whenever there is two Amoiroim in disagreement, in other words, it is a statement given by the Amoiroim, then it's called Itmar. We learned in the memra. If it's a Mishnah, it's Tanan. If it's a Brisa, it's Tanya. If it's a memra Brisa, it's Itmar. So in any event, here the issue is when a person violates Shabbos intentionally. So if there's a warning and there's witnesses, he will get the death penalty. If there is no warning, so then there's chorus, but the person needs to be warned before you can punish them. You're not going to punish someone if you didn't warn them. When you warn them, you have to warn them by the precise malacha, what they're doing wrong. You can't just say, oh, you're violating the Shabbos. You have to tell them specifically which violation of Shabbos they're doing in order for them to get punished. So sometimes the violation is very clear, but sometimes it's not clear, and this is where we have the different opinion. What is the violation? We're talking specifically somebody who is pruning. What you do when you're pruning, you are removing, you are ripping off the bad grass from the good ones. You're not intending to cut, you're actually intending to improve so that the leftover grass will be growing much better. So you're doing an act of pulling out, detaching, but the intent is to make it grow. So when you are doing this menachesh, when you are pruning, you're taking out the bad grass, how do they warn you against doing this malacha? What do they tell you? What kind of a malacha, what kind of a job, a prohibition on Shabbos are you doing when you're pruning? So the Gemara says like this, Itmar, ha-menachesh. And Rashi translates to you, what is menachesh? Menachesh means toilesh asabim ro'im mitoich hatoivim. He rips out, he detaches bad grass from amongst the good one. So the act is an act of detaching. But Rashi explains, V'chi akri lehu, when you uproot these bad grasses, samchi hani tfei, these grow more. So the good ones will grow better. So you're doing an act of detaching, but you're actually making it grow better. Another example where we have a question, what are you doing? What kind of a job? In this case is Hamashke Mayim Lizroim B'Shabbos. One who waters the Zroim, the growing, the grass on Shabbos. But this is not just an ordinary watering it, but that you are putting a lot of waters on the roots of the grass. And I guess the purpose of that is also to flood them so that they don't interfere with the good growing grass. Rashi says, Mashke mayim bizroyim, Zokt Rashi, Shezoirek mayim bi'ikrei ha'asabim. He throws water in the roots of the grass. I guess that's a way of uprooting some of the bad grass and leaving room for the better grass. So, in a way, what exactly are you doing here? So the Gemara asks, Mishum Mai Masrinon Bay. Because of what prohibition, what wrong are you doing that we warn you? What do we tell you? Don't do which malacha? What kind of a job, prohibited work on Shabbos, are you doing when you're pruning or you're putting the water on the roots of the grass? And the Rashi explains, Mishumai Masirin Bay. So Rashi, the Mai Melacha Kochashvin Lay. What kind of a melacha? What kind of a work? My melacha kochashvin lay. What kind of work do we consider this when you're pruning and when you're watering them? And Rashi explains, the vadai koitzer loy chashvinon. For sure, we don't consider it you're cutting because you're getting rid, because you're pruning or you're watering, though that you're getting rid. So maybe you're cutting off because there's a malacha of koitzer. That's one of the 39 malachas, is to cut the grass. That would be the grain. That would be a malacha. So he says no. In this case, you do not have intention to take the grass. The reason you're pruning, you don't want the grass that you have cut off. What you want to do is to fix the good grass which is in the field, so you're removing the bad grass so the good grass would grow. So if you cut something for the purpose that you want to take what you're cutting for yourself, that would be a malach of cutting. But in this case, you're not cutting. You don't need it. You're just cutting away because you're trying to get the other ones better. Why do we consider it? Now, there are two malachas that make the field better. So Rabba says that we warn you. What would they tell him? Mishum chodesh. They would say to you, you're not allowed to plow.
Real time.
Plowing of the field is one of the 39 malachas. What does the plowing of the field does? It prepares and it makes the ground better so that you can work it. So the job of plowing is improving the ground, the earth, so that later on you can plant and be better. He argues, Rabbah says, the same thing is when you're pruning, and the same thing is when you are watering the seed on Shabbos. It is chodesh, that is the malacha. The ab malacha is plowing, because you are fixing and improving the ground so that the others grow better. That's Rabbi's opinion.
Don't we have a malacha on Shabbos? Don't we have a malacha on Shabbos of separating, pulling the bad out from the good?
That's malachas boider. That would be malachas boider. That would not refer to growing and living things, detaching it. That would be more on your table to take the good from the bad. It's interesting that you bring that up, but I don't think that would apply at all when things are growing, even though it seems like you're taking away, in this case, the bad from the good, which is not allowed by the malachas of Biter, but this is in the growing thing. But it's worthy of looking into it further. But first, I would think that it does not apply when we're talking about things that are connected to the ground. Rabbi Yosef says, what you're actually doing is Meshum Zoireya, because you're sowing, even though you're doing the opposite of sowing, even though what you're doing is you're detaching, but still you are inevitably planting and making it grow better. So we have Rabbah and we have Rabbi Yosef, and each one gives a different malacha, a different malacha in which you need to be warned. So Omar Rabbah says Rabbah, Kavosi Didi Mistabra. It is logical according to my view. He's sort of saying that his view is the better one. He says it makes sense, like me, like I'm saying. He said that it's like plowing. Why does it make sense? He explains. Ma darkoi shel chodesh. What is the nature of plowing? What does plowing do? Lirifuye aro. To soften the ground. That is what plowing does. Rashi says lirifuye means lerachich, to soften. That's what it does. So he says, Hainami, in these cases, when you're pruning and when you're watering, marpuya aro, that softens the ground, and therefore the malacha that you warn is, he says, I should be right that we should warn him for the malacha of plowing. Rabbi Yosef, so Rabbi Yosef says no. Kavosi didi mistabra. That this is more logical, like I say. By the way, Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef, they had a lot of disagreements, and Rabbi was considered to be the sharper one. Rabbi Yosef was the one that knew more. He brought down another Gemara who was supposed to be Rosh Yeshiva, and but anyways, these two Amoraim, Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef, had it in for each other. They were, but in a very, very respectful to each other. But Rabbi Yosef says, Kavosi Didimistabra, that it makes sense like me. Why? Because he says, Madarkoi shel zoreya litzmuchi pira. What is the nature of one that sows? That it sprouts fruit. When you sow, you grow fruit. Hachanami, by doing these acts of pruning or watering, matzmiach pira, you're making it grow fruit. So he says this is more like plowing. He says it's more like growing. The Gemara actually, Abaya, he says, I don't know why you guys are arguing about. Actually, you can do one malacha, and it should be you can do one act, and you could be violating two separate malachas. So he says, why are you arguing? Why are you, Rabbi, saying only plowing and not sowing? And Rabbi Yossi saying only sowing and not plowing? Why don't we both say you're doing both? You're plowing and you're sowing. And that's not a problem. Oh, Marle Abaya le Rabbi. So Abaya says to Rabbi, Lididoch kasha ul Rabbi Yosef kasha. I have a problem. I have a question according to you. And I also have a question according to Rabbi Yosef. What's my question to you? Lididoch kasha. You're saying that you warn him just because of plowing. Mishum chodesh in mishum zarei aloi. Are we only going to warn him for plowing and not for sowing? Why not warn him about both? We can do both. He says, Rashi, Mishum Chodesh in Shuzarei Eloi, Amai Loi Mechayiv B'Tarvayu. Why should you not make him liable in both of these violations? Ha'avitar Vayu, because he's doing both. Even though he's doing one act of pruning, but with that act of pruning, he's doing both plowing and sowing. And he's going to prove because Vashkichinon, B'melocha de Mechayiv Tarti, we find when one does work, a melocha on Shabbos, that you would be chayiv too. So why are you insisting that it's only Chodesh? And the same thing, I have a question on the Rabbi Yosef Kashi. I have a problem with Rabbi Yosef. Mishum Zereya in Mishum Chodesh Loi, is it only for sowing and not for plowing? Let him be obligated on both. So what are you going to say? No, you cannot be obligated to violations on one act. The chi tema, and if you're going to say kol heichi di ika tarti le mechayiv el lechada, in any case where there's two possibilities, you're doing two things, but you're not going to be liable for two. You're only going to be liable for one. But he says that's not the case. But did not Rav Kahana say that Zoymer v'tzorich le'etzim, a person who is pruning on Shabbos, Zoymer b'Shabbos, and he needs the wood, which means if you're just ripping off a piece of wood, then it's destructive and you're not chayiv. But if you are zoymer, you are pruning and you want the wood, then chayiv shtayim, you'll be chayiv too. What are the two violations? Achas meshum neiteya, one because of planting, because by removing the wood from the tree, you're helping it grow, so you're planting. The achas mishum koitzer, and one because you're cutting down because you need that wood, so you're cutting it down for a purpose. And Rashi explains that the tzorich le'etzim is chayiv. If you are in need of the wood, then you're chayiv mishum koitzer for cutting down. Shahadei tzorich le'etzim, because you need the wood, and that's why you're chayiv. So you're chayiv for koitzer when you need the wood, you're cutting it down for the purpose. But you're also mechayiv mishum neiteya. You're also liable because of planting. The mishum hazimur gadlitway, because of the pruning, it grows more. So you're doing two things. So why are you both insisting you're only chayiv one, since both things are accomplished, and we know you do one act, you can be liable for two. So why don't we say that you're chayiv for both? That was the ask that Abaye asked on Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef. And the Gemara says, Kashi, it's a good question. In other words, basically you don't have to pick and choose which one, because they you do both. So seems like if you see a person is either pruning or putting the water, you can tell them, listen, you're violating plowing and you're violating sowing. And then he'll be chayiv for both of them.
Don't we have a halachic principle that was a kimle with the Rav Minei or something, that you can't, one action cannot have two punishments? So like I think we said if you shoot someone with an arrow,
I didn't hear you.
Don't we have a principle that one action cannot have two different problems? So like if you shoot someone, you can be brought to court for killing someone, but not not for ruining their shirt.
Yeah, that's what's called, the rule is called kimle b'derabimine. That means that when a person is liable for a more severe punishment, and he's also liable for a less severe punishment, so when you do the larger punishment, that includes the smaller punishment as well. So in the case, like if you shoot somebody and you get killed, or you're supposed to get killed for killing someone, then you're not going to have to pay for the damages that you did to the person's clothing while you kill them. So that's what's called kimle b'derabimine, that you have the lower level in the more expensive level. But in our case, they're both basically on the same level. They're over here. We're talking about either a chiyuv chatas or malchus, lashes. I mean, killing, you can't kill him twice, anyways. I mean, if he did it intentionally, and you have witnesses there, so what are you going to give him 2 misas? You can't do that. So, but the point is, you'll get double lashes, or you get that, but that's not a more severe one included in that includes a lesser one. They're both at the same level. They're both the same level of violation of the Shabbos. So now, Eisvei Rabbi Yosef l'Rabba. So Rabbi Yosef, who says that the work is Rabbi Yosef says that you're sowing. He says, he challenges Rabbah, who says that it's plowing. He's challenging him because we see that you're not allowed to be menachesh also on the 7th year, on Shemitah. On Shemitah, the 7th year, one is not supposed to work the fields. And the Mishnah says that for doing menachesh, for doing pruning, you're going to get lashes if you do it on Shavis, if you do it on Shemitah, because you're not allowed to have things grow. But Rabbi Yosef is arguing, if, like I said, that pruning is sowing, we understand why you're not allowed to do it on Shavis. But if it's like you said, that menachesh is actually plowing, there's no prohibition by kilayim, actually. We're not talking about, I said shvis, I made a mistake. I take that back. We're talking about kilayim then. There's no prohibition. Kilayim means when there's a mixture. You have a vine with grain, the same together. So it says if you're menachesh, so you're helping it grow the kilayim, you're violating the prohibition of not sowing kilayim. So Rabbi Yosef is saying to him like this: if, according to my interpretation, that when you are pruning, you're sowing, we understand you're going to get lashes for being menachesh kilayim, because the Torah says you can't sow kilayim. But according to you, that you're saying that when you're menachesh, when you're pruning, what you're doing is you're plowing. When a person is plowing, there's no prohibition because there's no kilayim yet over there. So there should not be kilayim. Let's look inside. Isivi Rabbi Yosef l'Rabbi. So Rabbi Yosef asked the question to Rabbi. He says, "Hamenachesh, one who prunes." So what he's doing is that there is a field that has been sown with kilayim, and in that field he removes the bad grass. So he's basically improving it now. Hold on. Yeah, hello? You don't have a minion?
Yeah,
You don't have a minion?
I hope I don't stay.
All right, I'm going to come down. Okay.
Okay.
Guys, they need me for a 10th. Do you guys we're up to the argument of Rabbi Yosef making an argument to Rabbah, and he's saying to him, if you said that menachesh means plowing, so why do we find the din? It says hamenachesh v'hamechape l'kilayim. If there is a field in which there is a mixture of kilayim, and you prune over there. The other thing is also mechape. Mechape means you cover with earth. That is a very similar thing. You're helping it grow when you're covering it with earth, the things that are kilayim, and that helps them grow better. So, look at you're gonna get malchus for it. Again, hamachape zechtrashi shemechase es hazeroyim be'ofar. You cover the grass with sand. You're covering it up. That makes it grow better. Like it, you would get malchus because why? There's a prohibition in the Torah Vayikra Yutes. It says you're not allowed to sow kilayim, and when you are being menachesh, when you are pruning or you're covering up the kilayim, that's like sowing it. That's the Tanakama. Rabbi Akiva Omer in that Mishnah, Rabbi Akiva says, Af HaMekayim. Even if you're just keeping it, you're not pruning, you're not covering, you just have a field that has a mixture of kilayim, and you're just holding on to it. As Rashi explained, Sheroye kilayim zarua ve'enei mevatle. You see sown kilayim and you're not mevatel, and you will get malchus for that also. Even without doing anything, just by observing that you have kilayim in your field, you would get malchus. So this is what Rabbi Yosef is asking Rabbi from the Mishnah, that it says over there that if you prune or you cover, you're going to get malchus. So what does pruning do? So he says like this. So Mela, it makes sense, according to me, since I say Mishum Zoireya, that when you're pruning, that means you're sowing. So that's why it makes sense. Hainu da asira zriya bikilayim. That's why it's asira. It's usher to sow kilayim. So it makes sense according to my explaining that menachesh is sowing. You can't be menachesh by kilayim because that's called slow sowing. Again, Rashi, the adi. I mean, it's okay according to me. That's according to Rabbi Yosef. The menachesh havi mishum zedeya, that when you are pruning, the prohibition is that you are sowing mishum hachi menachesh bikilayim loike. So that's why when you are doing the pruning by kilayim, you get malchus because you are you're sowing the asira ziriya bikilayim, because it is prohibited to sow by kilayim. The ksiv you're not allowed to sow kilayim. So Rabbi Yossi said it makes sense according to me. But according to you, you say that the reason why you're not allowed to prune on Shabbos, the malacha is plowing. Is there then a prohibition of plowing in kilayim? is it then also, which means there should not be malchus for plowing. If you consider pruning, plowing, and plowing is not also, as Rashi explains, mi asira. If a person will plow a field because he wants to go and sow kilayim there later on, for the plowing, he's not going to be liable. Why? The b'shas charisha leko kilayim klal. At the time that you're plowing, there's no kilayim there. You're plowing it, and later on you're going to put in kilayim. So in this case, if you're plowing it, and then later on there's going to be the kilayim, why are you violating if that's the prohibition of menachesh? Amar loy. So Rabbi says to Rabbi Yosef, Mishu Mikayim, that Enochanami, he is liable not for doing an act because the act is plowing. That's according to Rabbi, but he says you're still not allowed to sustain kilayim in your field, even if you're not doing an act. So Taka, there's no zriya, no charisha, there's no problem. Amar lei, so Rashi, so Rabbi says to Rabbi Yosef, Menachesh ein aloike ela mishum mekayim. Menachesh is not getting malchus because he's sowing. He's just getting malchus because he's keeping it in his field. But wait a minute, the Gemara says, what do you mean for keeping? That is the next opinion. That's the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says that even if you just hold it in your field, so that means that according to them, it's not enough to get malchus for holding it. Here you're saying Rabbi is answering that you're chayiv for sustaining in the field, but that wouldn't fit according to because that is what Rabbi Akiva says. Since that's what Rabbi Akiva says, so therefore, so basically, you can't have two rabbis disagreeing and saying the same thing. So if the one says that it is liable because he's sustaining it, so why is Rabbi Akiva disagreeing and saying because you're sustaining it? So let's look at the Gemara. Moed Katan is safer, since it says in the end, Rabbi Akiva says, Av HaMekayim, even one who sustains, Miklal de Tana Kama Lav Mishum Mekayimu. So that means that the first Tana is not because you're holding kilayim, that's because you're doing an act. So, but you're saying that menachesh is what? Menachesh is considered charisha. Charisha is not prohibited. I have another issue with this. I mean, to look at the Mefarshim, but it seems quite clearly the second case, the mechape, the second case, the one who covers the kilayim, that's for sure going to be an act of sustaining the kilayim. That's the question is, what is menachesh? Is menachesh charisha? But mechape seems to be that that's actually covering. You're actually, or maybe not, because I'm just trying to think, how could we split it? The Gemara says, Mishum Mekayim. Rashi specifically says, Menachesh ein elokel Mishum Mekayim. It's almost to say, the Mechape will be Take because you're actually growing. But Menachesh will be because of Mekayim. But how could we split one sentence, Menachesh and Mechape, that it says like, I don't know, but leave that. So, but the Gemara says, but the Mekayim is the opinion of Rabbi Akiva later on. So how could we say that the first Tana is also because you are sustaining it, but it's not like you're doing a kilayim, you're not sowing kilayim? And the Gemara answers, Kula Rabbi Akiva. The whole Mishnah goes according to the Rabbi Akiva. It's not two opinions. Umat tam komar. And so here we see it clear in the Gemara. So that Mechap is also part of it. Umat tam komar. He's saying, what's the reason? What is the reason why you're menachesh and mechaper that you get malchus? My tam hamenachesh v'amechaper b'kilayim loika. What is the reason for pruning and covering by kilayim that you get malchus? Is shumikayim. That is because you're holding on. There's no actual malacha because it's not ziriya according to Rabbah. It's only chodesh and there's no issue there. But what is the reason? Is mekayim. Just because you know that you have kilayim and you're not doing anything about it. For Rabbi Akiva says, af ha-mekayim. Even if you just told you don't have to do anything. So how come takir? Why? Most of the time you have to do an act in order to be liable. Here we're saying, if you have in your field a mixture of kilayim and you don't do anything about it, you're going to get the lashes, you're going to get malchus for that. But you didn't do anything. You just let it over there.
How could someone warn him about that?
Okay, and even if he has a warning, but he normally we know that in order to get lashes, you have to do something, not just to leave something. So they warned you. But still, I didn't do anything now. It's just letting you there. And most of the time we say you have to do an act in order to get the punishment. So the Gemara says, my timer the Rabbi Akiva. Why is Taka Rabbi Akiva? What's his reasoning that just for holding on to the kilayim in your field that you're going to get the lashes? The Gemara says the Tanya, because this is based on the Braisa. When the Pasuk says in Vayikra Yutes, it says, Sodcho lo yisizra kilayim. Your field, you should not sow kilayim. Ainli Eloi Zereya. So we know only when you are sowing. Mekayim benayim. But where do we know if you are sustaining and you're not actually sowing? You're just letting there. Talmud Leimer Kilayim Sot Chaloi. We read it, even though it says Lo Sizra Kilayim, we're taking out the word Sizra and we're saying Kilayim Sotcha Loi. That there should be no kilayim in your field. See how we know. And therefore, not only when you actually saw it, the pasuk lo sizra, we take out the word tizra and we're teaching loi kilayim. Kilayim sotcha loi, no kilayim. Tamud lem kilayim sotcha loi. Even though the pasuk in the Ferish says don't sow with kilayim. We diminish and we expound, we take out the sizra, and we're saying lo kilayim, sotcha lo kilayim, lo ye kilayim ilmok, it should not be kilayim. Shechayiv ata levatle. I don't know. The Gemara is not really explaining how or why he's saying that. The Gemara is just saying that. The verse says, and Rashi, points it out. The verse says, "Sotcha lo sizra kilayim," and we're saying, take out the word sizra and just read "Sotcha lo kilayim." And why? I mean, but it says lo sizra. But and Rashi points it out to you. It says, "V'avagav diksiv lo sizra the kilayim." Goyrin v'dershim. We diminish and we expound. Lo ye kilayim v'komoker. I don't know. This has to be looked in further. Why we would say something like that. In any event, just to finish off, something on the Parsha. And this week we're standing before the Shabbos before Rosh Hashanah. This is the last portions, the Tzavim and Vayelech. We have a double portion. And literally the verse is talking about before Moshe Rabbeinu's passing, he says, Atem nitzovim hayem kulcham. He gathered all Jewish people together. And he says, you're all standing here together, all including the leaders the heads of the tribes, and even the very simple, the wood choppers, the water carriers, were all standing together. And the word it's brought out, the word nitzavim is not just omdim. Omdim means standing. Nitzavim means anchored, standing strong. So it's brought out that when we are all together, when we can keep a united front, whether it's the great people or the very simple people, and when everybody realizes that we have to be all together, that when we're together, then we're stronger. When we appreciate the fact that everybody has something to contribute. You might be a head of a tribe, which is a very important position. You might be very smart. You might be very rich. You might be very successful. You might be very influential, yeah. But you have to realize that also the other person who works hard for his living and is doing simple, plain work as expressed by a water carrier and a wood chopper, which is very physical and simple, so to speak, work. But you realize it's like one body. So you have the head, and that's maybe the most important part of the body. You have the heart, but you still need your feet, and you still need your hands, and you need all of the body in order to function. When you do it all together, when you're kulchem, which means that you appreciate that we are one people, then we're nitzavim, then we are very strong. And this was what Moshe Rabbeinu said to the Jewish people before he passed away. But it's brought down already in the Medrash. The Zohar elaborates that Atem Nitzavim Hayom refers to Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is called the day. Just like at that time, in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, before he died, every year before Rosh Hashanah, we read this portion of Atem Nitzavim because we are also all standing before Hashem in judgment. And the way for us to be strong and to come through and be successful in our judgment, to be nitzavim, to be strong, is kulcha, when we're all together. When we have an appreciation and we recognize that everybody is valuable and everybody is important, and we can be together, that's when we are strong, and that's when we are zoicha. Which also ties in yesterday, on the 18th of Elul, was the birthday of both the Baal Shem Tov and also the Alter Rebbe, the Baal HaTanya, the author of the Tanya. They were both born on Chai Elul, on the 18th day of Elul. Chai means the life, the force life force of Elul. And the Baal Shem Tov, and then followed by the Alter Rebbe and the other Rabbeim that followed the Alter Rebbe, their big thing was that they didn't look at people how they appear on the surface. When you have a person sometimes looking to buy a piece of real estate, and you look at the house, so some people who are not mavens, they're not understanding, they look at this situation, what it looks now. So the kitchen, the dining room, the bathrooms, they're not so nice. And so they don't want to buy it. But the person who's a maven will tell you, listen, this needs a little bit touch-ups over here and there. You have to invest some money, but this is a big, beautiful bargain. This is a big, beautiful home. And the same thing is with the Jewish people. You know, sometimes people look just at the surface. They look at you, wonder, he looks like a bum, you know. It looks like somebody that you cannot accomplish anything with. And the Baal Shem Tov, as the verse says, Al Tabit al Mare, you don't look at the surface, what it looks like. We have to know that every Yid has a neshama, has a soul. And don't look what he's now, look what these potential, what you could bring into. That's what the Baal Shem Tov taught. While some of the other schools of thought, they were degrading and they were looked down at other Jews who weren't learned or who weren't at their level. The Baal Shem Tov says, we don't really know what's valued more, possibly the simple davening and the simple feeling that a simple person puts into doing a mitzvah can sometimes be more valuable than the pages of Talmud that a great scholar is learning, because to Hashem, when you turn to him with innocence and with simplicity and earnestly, then Hashem values that tremendously. And that's the work of the Baal Shem Tov, and that's the work that the Rebbe continues and through his shluchim to go ahead and find those sparks and those yidden and try to bring them back, wake up their souls, wake up their sparks, and to connect them, to reconnect them to their source, to the Yiddishkeit. And Rebbe says that, sometimes people feel that, when you're telling them, if you're seeing Chabad, you're Jewish, you're this, they're being a little bit too pushy, and they're and what's your business? What do you care? I mean, and the Rebbe brings a metaphor. It's like when there is a fire, a house is on fire, and somebody inside is sleeping, and he is enjoying his sleep. He's dreaming about, he's in La La Land, but you see there's a fire. You go and you wake him up. When he wakes up, not only isn't he going to be upset with you that you woke him up, he's going to be endlessly thankful to you for saving his life because you woke him up. So while people, when they're asleep, maybe they don't appreciate so much somebody coming, interfering with their business and telling them what to do and being a nudnik, but at the end of the day, the people will appreciate, and when they do wake up from their slumber, when they hear the call of the shofar and they wake up, then they'll be thankful for the effort and for saving their lives and helping them find their way back. And that's what the Baal Shem Tov taught, and that's what we all should be doing. We should be concentrating on trying to connect ourselves and connect other Yidden to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then Hashem blesses us all with a happy and a healthy year, with a Ksivach Simatoiva, Shana Toiva Mesuka, a good gebench year in which we get all of our needs, whatever we need, taken care of. Okay, we'll leave it over here today, and the Mitzvah Hashem will continue, Bezras Hashem, next week.
Amen, and thank you, Rabbi.
Last night, Lisa and I went to a Farbrengen.
About what?
We went to Lisa and I for Bringens last night.
Great, for Chayel.
Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. With Rabbi Dubrovsky.
Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. Stay well, everybody. See you next week.